Additional aids and services are available to individuals with disabilities. To make such a request, please contact us by email, by clicking the Help tab in the PD portal, or at pdportal@tamu.edu, by phone, including Relay Texas at 1-800-441-7323, or in writing to Train PD, PD Portal Support, 4477 TAMU, College Station, Texas 77843. Both a transcript and accessible document of the content presented in this webinar can be found as resources in the course description. Click on the blue links under Course Resources in the description. When a link is clicked, a new browser window will open.
Welcome, everyone. Today you are here for tape 1314 in Class E, C, and D, how to get started. We have our wonderful host or presenter today, Chastity Wright, and she is with DRC. And I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Chastity and allow her to introduce herself, and we'll be on our way. Thanks for joining.
Thank you. My name is Chastity Wright, and I am the Assessment Solutions Consultant for Texas for both TABE and TABE Class E. And I appreciate y'all taking time out of your day. I wanted to host a regional webinar. I know we've been doing some national webinars regarding TABE 13 and 14 and Class E, C, and D. So I really wanted to just focus in on programs from Texas. And that way, if you guys had any questions, concerns, this is your time to ask me directly. Now we're going to move into our presentation today. There are some topics that we are going to get focused in on, and most of it is going to revolve around 13, 14 and Class C, C, and D updates. We are here to talk about the TABE assessment, which includes our TABE 13 and 14, which measures those foundational skills in reading, math, and language, as well as our TABE Class E assessments, Forms C and D, and that looks at English language proficiencies and the content area of reading, speaking, listening, and writing. And then we are going to talk just a bit about our workforce portal. It is somewhat new to TABE. I think it's been out for about a year and a half now. Programs across the country have been utilizing the TABE workforce for about a year and a half. It will work with our 13 and 14 forms as well. So I thought I would reintroduce the TABE portal. The other thing that we're going to focus in on too, because there's been some slight changes to our reports, but they are very good changes, I think. So I want to talk about our reports that most of you, I assume, are already familiar with. If you're not, that's fine. We're going to review the individual profile reports for both the TABE and TABE Class C assessment. If you've been to one of my informational webinars before, you know that I'm big on our resources. So I'm going to direct you to our tabetest.com website. We'll walk through the resources available on tabetest.com. I just checked this morning, and some of the 11 and 12 resources that I was hoping would be published are not yet on the website, but you all will at least know where to go and how to navigate through that website, because I assume by the end of the week they will be posted there. Our TABE 13 and 14 and Class E Form C and D are approved by the NRS. However, our current forms that most of our programs are still utilizing, TABE 11 and 12 and Class E A and B, are approved through the end of June of this year of 2025. So you can continue using those forms right up until June 30th of 2025. As far as the functionality or the delivery of the TABE and TABE Class C assessment, That is not going to change. We are still obviously offering our online testing as well as remote testing for both TABE and TABE Class E. Our offline testing for TABE, for those of you that are not familiar with our offline testing, it is just simply a digital copy of our paper and pencil assessment. So our current online testing assessment, of course, are forms 11 and 12. We will not be migrating until our paper pencil forms are out. So that'll be probably more like an April timeframe for the offline digital testing for TABE 13 and 14. And then we have our paper and pencil assessment. Paper and pencil is not going away. We still have many, many programs that utilize this mode of testing. So we have no plans of getting rid of paper and pencil. One of the benefits of our paper and pencil assessment is that we do offer a free scanning and scoring option. So we provide that to our customers at no charge. And it allows customers to score answer documents, and the data populates into the DRC Insight portal. So that is our online portal. Even though you might be a program, because whether you're in a correctional facility, you have limited internet or spotty internet, so you're utilizing paper and pencil, you're still going to get the diagnostic data that you would get if you were administering an online assessment. So you're still going to get that individual profile report. So we have had this online scanning and scoring tool available for the past couple of years for TABE. We now have it available for TABE Class C, which is really exciting. So folks using paper and pencil, TABE Class C, they are able to scan and score those answer documents as well. And that information will import into the DRC Insight portal, which really just simplifies testing for your programs. It doesn't matter if you are administering your online testing, you're doing remote testing, you're doing offline testing, or you're doing paper and pencil testing. All of your data is going into one place, and that's into the DRC Insight portal. And you know, if you are familiar with the portal, that you're just accessing that data under reports. That is not going to change. The other thing I'll just go ahead and mention quickly, because I've gotten asked this question a lot, for those programs that are currently using our scanning and scoring software, I've gotten asked a lot if there is a need to update that software. So once programs migrate to the new forms 13 and 14, and of course, if you're utilizing Class C, forms C and D, do I need to update my current software? And the answer to that is no, you absolutely do not. So your current software that you're utilizing, you can go ahead and scan and score with forms 11 and 12, 13 and 14, and Class C forms C and D. So there's no need to update the software. The big news is our 13 and 14 forms are being launched online only. So this is our online forms tomorrow. January 15th, DRC is launching the online forms. There are no changes to the college and career readiness standards. So we've been saying this all along. There are not many significant changes in content or rigor within 13 and 14, simply because there are no changes in the college and career readiness standards. We were already very much aligned to those standards with our forms 11 and 12. There are no changes to the NRS level descriptors. We did make small changes to the objective blueprints, and we'll take a peek at that here in a minute in a couple of slides. The other thing I'd like to point out too is there are no changes in scale score ranges either from TABE 11 and 12 to TABE 13 and 14. One of the things that makes my programs very excited that are still utilizing our paper and pencil forms is that we have gone back to one standard answer sheet for all levels. So it's one answer document for all levels. If you're using paper and pencil now, you know that's not the case. And there are many answer documents to keep track of. So we just try to simplify that for our programs, going back to that one answer document. Overall, you will see a reduction in testing time for TABE 13 and 14, and the reduction is mainly due to the reduction of the reading load. So it's not just the reading load and the reading subtest, it's also, you'll see a reduction in the reading load and the other subtests, the math and the language as well. The questions are just shorter and more concise. There is a reduction in item count or the number of questions, but it's very minimal. So it's 2 to 3 items per subject area. Really, what's causing that reduction in testing time, again, is just the reduction in the reading load. And then the paper pencil mode will be launching in April. So right now, our new Class E forms online, C&D, were launched back in September. So they have been available online to programs since September. And then our 13 and 14 online forms will be available tomorrow. However, both 13 and 14 and Class E, C, and D paper pencil forms will not be available until April. I've been asked about pricing for all of this. Pricing is not going to change. We did have a slight annual price increase, which has already been posted, and it usually happens January 1 every year, but we are not changing the pricing structure for 13 and 14. Another question that I get asked too, and I'll just go ahead and address this now, is what if I have 500 test administrations left for TABE 11 and 12, and I want to start utilizing forms 13 and 14? We can absolutely convert those license to 13 and 14. And the same goes for those clients that are utilizing Class E forms A and B. We can absolutely convert those remaining license to forms C and D. There's no issue with that whatsoever. So don't think that you have to use up all your license from 11 and 12 or A and B before you move into the new forms 13, 14, C, and D. Okay, the other thing I did want to mention too is we have our set schedule of, we are launching on January 15th. Okay, that's DRC's launch date. You still need to determine when your state has incorporated these new forms or will allow you as a program to start utilizing these new forms within your program. So every state is different. Every state has set a target start date as far as when they're going to start letting their programs utilize these new forms. This is DRC's timeline. So as of tomorrow, 13 and 14 will be available, but TWC may have a different timeline as to when you can start implementing those forms. So make sure you are reaching out to your state to determine their timelines. Let's take a look at the reading updates. Again, this slide is just to indicate those minimal changes that we are seeing in our blueprints. Now, I was hoping to be able to just go out to tabetest.com, which is our public website, and pull up the entire set of blueprints for you for 13 and 14, but they are not there as of yet. I'm assuming today, tomorrow, within this week that they will be published. 13 and 14 with the reading blueprints, just to show you the minimal changes. So if we go down to the domain of integration of knowledge and ideals, you'll see level E for TABE 13 and 14, 13.6% makes up that domain. However, with 11 and 12, it was at 15%. So we're talking 2 percentage points of a change. So really, really minimal changes. Again, if we look at level M, integration of knowledge and ideals. So we were looking at that, at reading, that domain made up 13.6% for 13 and 14. And for 11 and 12, it was 11%. So again, just a couple of percentage points difference there. I mentioned that the reading passages are going to be reduced as well. So this is an example on the left-hand side of a reading item from 11 and 12, and then on the right-hand side, the item from 13 and 14. So as you can see, it's definitely reduced and way more concise. So I think the reading section of TABE will be much more enjoyable with 13 and 14 than what it was or is currently with 11 and 12. Unfortunately, again, this is the only item I have to show you at this point. Later on in the informational webinar, we'll walk through where you can go. If you haven't already gone yet, we do have sample items for 13 and 14 posted. So I'll show you where you can go and take a look at those sample items. So you can look at reading. Every single level of reading, there are sample items posted. You can go in and take a peek at. And then for math updates, this is just an example of level E and how we've taken 2 domains and really combined them to one. So you'll see with 11 and 12, number and operations fractions, and number and operations base 10 now just becomes number and operations. So we really just consolidated those 2 domains into one with 13 and 14. This is level D, just showing you how some of the domains have been, you have more domains with 11 and 12, and we consolidated those domains with 13 and 14. And I put in this little chart for you all so that you're able to look at the new naming convention for those new domains, and then what the old naming convention was. So really this chart just identifies all of the new domains for all levels of 13 and 14, and then the old domains that we've incorporated into those new domains. So the old naming conventions that have been incorporated into the new naming conventions. So it's all measuring the same content, okay? So keep that in mind. It's all measuring the exact same content. That does not change. Really, it's just the naming convention that changes. The other change for the math section of TABE 13 and 14 is we are changing the online calculator. So the online calculator will be the Desmos calculator. There's the for function and the scientific calculators. The appropriate calculator will populate in the appropriate section as it does now with 11 and 12. So the only difference is we are utilizing the Desmos calculator. And the reason that we have chosen to move to the Desmos calculator is because it is the most widely used calculator in assessment across the K-12 world. There are also a ton of free online resources that you can utilize in your program. All you have to do is Google Desmos calculator, and you'll be presented with free online resources. That's why we have chosen to move to the Desmos calculator within the DRC Insight portal. However, and I've gotten asked this question, so I just want to address it now. I had a program that used all paper. Do we have to go out and purchase the Desmos brand calculators for paper pencil when utilizing the paper pencil math assessment? No, you do not have to do that. We just have added it into our online system. So there's no need to go out and purchase all new calculators if you are currently using, or if you are paper and pencil customers and plan to transition into 13, 14 as paper and pencil as well. just a little tidbit snapshot of those language updates, the language blueprints. You can see the domains that are covered in the language section of the assessment. The level E for 11 and 12, we look at conventions of standard English currently will make up 33.3% of the language domain. And currently, if you're using 11 and 12, it makes up 48%. I'm not going to go through all of them, but if we're sticking with level E and we move down to text types and purposes, again, you're looking at that 33.3% for 13 and 14, whereas 11 and 12, it made up 30%. We have added a category you can see here with level E, the knowledge of language and vocabulary has been added to level E with forms 11 and 12. It wasn't being measured at all. And now with the new forms, it is being measured and it is at that 33.3% for that particular level and subtest. That's a brief overview of the updates for 13 and 14. Again, I don't have the full blueprints. I was really hoping by today I'd have them for y'all to provide you. We are very transparent what is being assessed. We have to be because of our publishing partners. So that information will be posted at tapetest.com. Moving to Class E Forms C and D. They were launched, our online forms. We launched those back in September of 2024. I have one state so far that I work with that is utilizing Forms C and D, and it seems to be going very, very well. C and D, you're not going to see much changes either because our current forms A and B were already aligned to the NRS descriptors. So we already had a strong alignment. However, if you're familiar with Class E, forms A and B were published way back in 2007. So it was time to update, or I would say refresh the assessment. We did things like change some outdated graphics. There was an item with writing a check. So really just kind of changing out the questions. It's providing the same measurement, but just asking it in a different way and not utilizing outdated things like checks and just things that folks aren't seeing in everyday life, community, and academic situations. The new forms will have new and refreshed, updated items. It is not a complete overhaul. So there are not all new items, but again, as I mentioned, refreshed and some updated items. I've already mentioned this, but it's very exciting, is paper testing will switch to that free DRC local scanning portal. And this is kind of a big deal. If you are a paper pencil Class E current user, you understand that this is going to make things so much simpler. You're not going to have to use those scoring guides and score those responses. The scanning scoring software is going to take care of that for you. Another exciting announcement is that currently, and you may or may not be aware of this, we have integration agreements with our TABE 11 and 12 and our TABE 13 and 14 with Essential Education and Aztec software for TABE. So we currently are integrating your TABE data into these software or into their online program. So it essentially creates a individualized learning plan based on their TABE data. So it takes that second page of your individual or your examinee's individual profile report. So those areas of next focus, it exports those right into your publishing, whatever publisher you use, whether it's Essential Education, Aztec software. And we are working with other publishers to create the same integration. Essential Education and Aztec were just first. It basically creates an individualized learning plan for students. And I unfortunately can't speak to what exactly that looks like because, again, we are just providing the data to these publishing partners. So if you wanted more information on that, you would just simply contact your Essential Education or Aztec software representative. But the exciting news is we are now pursuing that with our ESL publishing partner. So we are looking at integration possibilities with our Class E data with those various ESL publishing partners. I told you that there weren't many changes for TABE 13 and 14, and I showed you snapshots of the minimal changes that are going to take place or that have taken place, honestly. Class E is even easier. So I really have one slide to show you. Over to the left-hand side, if you are familiar with Class C, you know that quantitative literacy used to be its own domain and that it was present in each of the subtests. It has now changed. So it's still present. Again, it's not gone away, but it's just been looked at more as a sub-skill. So we're assessing it more as a sub-skill than its own domain. And that is all that has changed as far as the blueprints go for TABE Class C. Just moving that quantitative literacy from its own domain to a sub-skill. Now it will be measured under the sub-skill of numbers and numeracy terms. And that's it. That's all the changes I have for you with the blueprints as far as it goes with TABE Class C. Moving forward, I had mentioned that we have our sample items on our public website, tabetest.com, for not only TABE 13 and 14, but TABE Class C Forms C and D. Those of you that are already familiar with TABE testing or testing with TABE Class E, and you've attended, whether it's been a webinar of mine or an informational session, you know that I am a huge proponent of the online tools training. There are two different ways to access the online tools training. Students or examinees can actually access it once they've clicked on their test delivery client. So right before testing, let's just put it that way. If you're not familiar with the test delivery client that's downloaded onto your testing devices. So they can access it at that point. But again, it is right before they are entering to take the assessment. They're probably already pretty nervous about taking this assessment. Test anxiety is high. We have our online tools training, and it is available on our public website, tabetest.com. I'm going to navigate out to that website. I personally use tabetest.com every single day because programs will email me, ask me questions. And I know under this resources tab here that basically any question that's asked of me, I can go in, pull the documentation, and send it to them very, very quickly. Under the resources tab, I don't have it in our agenda today to go through every resource that's available, but I did want to point it out to you. I had mentioned that the blueprints will eventually be posted under resources here, TABE 13 and 14. Once those blueprints get the final marketing stamp approval, we will actually post them under resources, TABE 13 and 14. And there'll be a little pop out to the right-hand side, and we will post those blueprints there. You already know with 11 and 12, the blueprints are already there, the crosswalks, everything you need as far as testing goes, scoring guide, all of that is available already on our website. Eventually, 13 and 14 is going to mirror the information that's available for 11 and 12. So the exact same information will be posted. We also have our drop down for C&D. So you can see that Class C, the new C&D blueprints are already posted. So they are already available on tabetest.com, as well as our new objective structure and the testing times. And then with A and B, you can see all of that information has been there and will continue to be there until we are sunsetting these forms. If we scroll all the way down to the bottom of our resources tab, we have our online tools training. If we click on our online tools training, we have online tools available for C&D, and I guess I lied, 1314 is not posted there yet. It will be, and it will be here. You can have an inside look at sample items for C&D, for Class C C&D. If you enter the system where it says click here, it basically simulates a live testing environment for your examinees or students. Within this portal, you can see that all 4 domains are listed. So you can look at what types of items are presented to a student at level 1, or questions at level 1, level 2, level 3, and level 4. So you can navigate through these online tools training system and get limited item exposure, but it also will give you an indication as to what tools your examinees are being presented with. Not only do you have a good understanding of what the student experience is, so that if you have to assist a student, you're able to do so. You're understanding how the platform operates. You're getting a good understanding of the items that are going to be presented to your students. This is also a great resource for students. If there is time, or you can send the link to your students, or if they're coming into the program, this is something that you can utilize before testing so that the students get, again, it's limited item exposure. We are a testing assessment company, so we do not believe in teaching to the test, but we do provide some sample items as well as exposure to that online platform. Because the last thing that you want is someone to come in and be nervous about navigating through the platform, let alone taking the assessment. And this is good, especially for those folks that struggle with their digital literacy skills. They can go through these online tools training multiple times. So it's not just a one and done. You can actually navigate through the different levels and different subtests multiple times. Let's just, for example, level 1, we're going to go to the standard assessment administration. We do provide examinees with the username and password. Again, this username and password would normally come from the test tickets that you have created. So we're going to go test 1, 2, 3, 4, and voila, it's just as simple as that. Now, they'll be presented with a welcome screen, and it'll have the student's name. Of course, this is just a training, so it's going to be student training, the test name, session name, and your site information, of course, student ID if you're tracking that information. And it'll allow the student to navigate through the online tools training, which again, just gives them exposure to the online assessment. So that's available. It will be available, I promise you, for 13 and 14, as well as C&D, and of course, Forms 11 and 12, and Forms A and B for Class C. They have been there, and they will remain there, again, until we sunset those products. Just look at those sample items ahead of time if you are curious as to what those look like for C&D in 13 and 14. It will be a separate tab. I know it says click here for TABE 11 and 12 Class C Forms A and B, and then click here for Class C Forms C and D. So 13 and 14 will be separate, posted right under that. With the sample items with Class E, those of you that are not familiar with Class C, this is just a reading example. Lower level examinees are presented with picture-based stimuli. It will just say, what does the picture show? And then the student can go in and answer what the picture shows. This is actually an example pulled directly from our online tools. This is a lower level, level 2. And the students also, so I didn't mention this prior, when we were actually in the online tools training, they can check their answers. So they do have the opportunity to go through the assessment and check their answers. And again, obviously, this is just for the online tools training where they do have that option to check their answers. The next example is just an example of a writing question, level 2. This is the multiple choice. There are 2 sections to our writing assessment if you're not familiar with Class C. So we do have our multiple choice and our constructed response. And again, they do have the ability to check their answers. Those of you that are not familiar, let's say with TABE Online or TABE Class C Online, you'll notice that the online tools that they have access to are exactly the same. So whether they're testing with TABE or they're testing with TABE Class E, the platform looks exactly the same. The only thing that's really different, of course, is the assessment that's being presented to them. But navigating the platform is relatively the same from assessment to assessment. This is an example of our writing our constructed response. And some of you might be thinking, well, I don't know if my student is going to be able to type that response into the computer. My children are the same way. They are so used to using a phone or a tablet when they were younger that I would assume that their typing skills are non-existent at this point. But this gives your students an opportunity to work on those digital literacy skills, maybe practice typing into the system. So we do require that those constructed response items, it does require a little bit of typing within the system. But again, they have the opportunity to practice before they actually sit down for the live testing environment. This is an example of a speaking item. This is an updated speaking item. I think this item actually took the place of writing the check, I'm pretty sure. It's asking the students to state what time it is. They have to listen to the directions. The directions are read aloud to them, and they have the opportunity to record their response up to 3 times. Just to point out, as far as Class C goes, if you are familiar with the online system, it doesn't change. The functionality of the system is not changing. It's just refreshing some of those items. Really, nothing's changed. The only thing that's changed with Class C is that we are incorporating the free scanning and scoring for our paper and pencil tool. So that's going to be incorporated. And then when we look at quantitative literacy, that just becomes a subskill. I did want to talk about the multiple uses of TABE. We have had a pretty exciting year with TABE as far as where TABE is being utilized. We're all very familiar with the top left-hand corner here, the WIOA funded adult education programs, right? That's the bucket that we fall under. I would say 80% of our customer base, 75 to 84% of our customer base, that falls within that bucket. Below is corrections intake for education programs, an area where TABE is pretty much 100% used across all of corrections. And then below, we are seeing an uptick in college placement programs. So they are utilizing the TABE assessment for specific programs in specific regions of the country. At the top, the workforce screening placement, we are seeing an uptick in that, as well as being utilized in high school CTE in the K-12 arena because of our workforce portal. We're going to take a peek at that here in a minute. It has generated interest in workforce screening and placement, as well as CTE programs in specific regions of the country. Kind of the most exciting area is the high school equivalency subtest in reading and math. I work in a particular state, Tennessee. their assessment solutions consultant as well, that has allowed TABE reading and math scores. Now they have to reach a certain cut score to be utilized in place of the high school equivalency reading and math subtest. Examinees score a specific cut score that the state has determined. DRC had nothing to do with it. So what that means is if examinees or students score a specific cut score in reading and math, that they do not have to move on to take the reading and math subtest for that state's high school equivalency. Do they still have to take the other portions? Yes, of course. But what it does is it fast tracks students through high school equivalency. So it's really been great that they're utilizing TABE for this, because it's one less assessment that a student or examinee is going to have to take. Also, it's not going to cost that student anything, which is great. They approved it in April of last year, of 2024, it was approved. So we've already seen many programs taking advantage of this opportunity. And they're calling it Alternative Pathways to High School Equivalency. Many states across the country are looking at this. In Texas, we are doing a alternative pathway to high school diploma, where they're using TABE and K-12 programs that are now serving adults. It is expanding. We have many, many folks out there without a high school diploma or a high school equivalency. We are seeing programs across the country utilizing TABE and TABE Class E for these multiple pathways. Let's circle back to the TABE workforce portal. I said it was released a couple of years ago. So actually 2 years ago this month, it's already been out. And it basically, for those of you that are not familiar with our workforce portal, it aligns TABE reading and math scores to over 1,000 Bright Outlook careers from the Department of Labor's website. So what we did is we partnered with a company called Metametrics out in North Carolina, and Metametrics had already worked with the Department of Labor to assign Lexile and quantile levels, Lexile being reading, quantile being math, levels to these Bright Outlook careers, meaning they need to be at this Lexile level or this quantile level in order to be successful within this career. So we had to align our scale scores with those Lexile and quantile measurements. So we did that, which in return provided us those new grade ranges that we have for TABE. We do have those available now, just from that research that we did with Metametrics. What I'm going to do now, hopefully, I want to take you out to the Insight portal here. And again, I use the Insight portal pretty much every day too. So I'm going into the DRC Insight portal and I'm signing in with my username and password. And under my applications, I'm going to go into my workforce portal. Just to reiterate, you do have to administer a TABE test to get this information for your students. It will pull from the most recent TABE reading or math subtest. You'll search by your site. I'm just going to do our demo site here. And then you'll pick your site information. We're sticking with 11 and 12 because I think that's where the data is. Up at the top, it says type of score. I'm going to leave it as our TABE score. Remember I said that Lexile and quantile information was already available. So we allow you to look at the report, and you'll see what I mean here in a second, via Lexile quantile measurements or TABE scale score. So this is the score that's determining readiness in a specific career cluster. And then I'm going to look at the session and pull all my students' information from a particular session. And I'm going to go down to me. Now, In this field, you can show all of your students at once. You can show limited amount of students here. So you can really customize the way that this page looks. Now I'm going to select my name and it's hyperlinked. So we'll just click on my name and it will automatically bring up matching careers based on my TABE scores. So I have 50 matching careers based on my TABE scores, meaning that I am ready to pursue those careers. That's a lot to navigate through. So you can show 5 at a time. You can sort by bright outlook careers, or if you're interested in the salary, you can sort by salary. I've changed it where the careers that I have matches for, I'm going to look at the highest salary careers first. And then I've determined none of these careers really interest me. And I say this is something that, of course, you're logging into the DRC Insight portal. It is not student facing now, but you'll see that the report can be printed out via PDF. So if you're sitting down with a career counselor or a teacher, you could have this conversation with your students.
We have a question. Will we have access? Because I do not have that.
It is an add-on, and the way that we charge for it is different than we do with our TABE test administration. So it's $5 per student per year. You can run the report as many times as you want, but it's $5 per student per year. If you're interested in getting access to that or interested in purchasing it, we could do a more in-depth demonstration to make sure it is something that would actually fit the needs of your program. But it is an add-on. I should have said that initially. There are some programs that have it. There are some that do not, but you would just need to add it on to your TABE subscription. I'm looking at my 50 matches here. Nothing really interests me. If they did, everything's hyperlinked. I could go right into the particular career that I was interested in or have my career advisor navigate into there. I already know I'm interested in architecture and construction, and I use this example all the time. So any of you that's been through me with one of these demonstrations, I'm sorry. And I'm going to go into electrical power line installer repair. That's what I want to be, but I want to see, am I ready for that? Do I have the foundational skills needed in reading and math to be successful in this career? We're going to find out. Now, at the beginning, we are pulling in all of this great data from ONET as well. At the top, you'll get the name of the career overview. So it's going to tell you that this has been related a bright outlook career. It's going to give you the level of education as well as preferred experience for this particular career. And then below, this is where we're going to look at that data. We're going to look at the TABE scale score range. We have the opportunity to look at this from a Lexile and quantile measurement should we choose. We focus on scale scores in the TABE world, so we're going to keep it as scale score range. And you can see here, as I scroll down, we have a 547 in gray. That's what the Department of Labor is saying is the target score. Now, these are not target scores that are set by DRC. Again, this is something that the Department of Labor has already determined is the target cut score in order to be successful in this career. And again, we're talking entry level. Moving over to the right-hand side, the 529 is in purple. That is my TABE scale score in reading. And then we also have it in math. So the first 564, that is what the Department of Labor is saying is the cut score for this particular career. And then my score of a 595. So I am ready to go. I am above the cut score in math. And in reading, I'm close. I'm close enough where there is a likelihood that I would still be pretty successful in this career because there's not a drastic difference, I guess, in scale scores there. This is the indication, am I ready to embark on this career? The other thing I like to point out, this also will indicate the level of foundational skills needed in reading and math. I like to use the welding career as an example. I've never done the research before, but I never knew that a welder required such high level foundational skills in math to be successful. So this is also a great indication of the level of skills that you're going to need, not only in reading and math. The other thing that it's going to demonstrate too is, okay, well, I might not be there. Maybe I do need a little more work in the reading areas. All is not lost, right? I'm enrolled in classes or plan to enroll in classes. I can still improve my reading scores. I have time. I have my individual profile report. That's my diagnostic report that's going to pinpoint my areas of next focus. So I still have time to improve. It shows readiness, obviously. It tells you where you need to improve. And it tells you even if you're going to be interested in that field. So for me, for welding would be out, because I know that this chart shows I have amazing foundational skills in math, but honestly, math is not something that I enjoy and probably am lacking slightly on those foundational skills. That would be a career I probably wouldn't be interested in pursuing. I might want to pursue it and improve those skills. It's just going to give you a wealth of information. Below that, you're going to get your national comparison. So you're going to get your annual salary and then the hourly salary as well. And then scrolling below that, you'll see projected career growth from 2020 through 2030. There is a 10% or higher increase. This is a faster than average growing career. That's nationally, right? So if we look over to the right-hand side, the map is color-coded, so it will indicate where there are above average opportunities. And all of those orange-facing states, there are average opportunities in the gray-facing states, and there are below average opportunities in all of those blue-facing states. If you ever pulled information and a state was left blank, it's just because the Department of Labor doesn't have the information yet. If they don't have the data, then we can't pull that in. And then below that, we look at key tasks and technical skills as well as related careers. For example, I may love all the tasks and technical skills involved with being a power line installer. However, I am not happy about being 30, 40 feet up in the air. Maybe I want to consider just looking at the electrician career versus being that power line installer. And so I can actually just drill right into the electrician's field, and it'll bring up all of the same information that we looked at here. Everything that you see with the careers, they are hyperlinked so that you can just drill right into that career. It's not like you have to go back up and search it. Quick overview of the workforce portal. If you want a more in-depth demonstration, you just need to contact me and I'd be happy to do that for you. All right, let's go back to our PowerPoint. I gave you a brief demo or demonstration of what that workforce portal looks like. I've also incorporated in the slide deck the information as far as the readiness dashboard, so those scale score ranges, the national comparison information that you would get from the dashboard of the workforce portal. This is just another phlebotomist. So what the expectation is for those foundational skills in reading and math. Brief overview, but if you wanted more information, contact me directly. I have you all with me. So just again, pointing out that there is a great deal of resources available to you all, not only at tabetest.com where we looked at, but also within the DRC Insight portal. So if you were to log into the DRC Insight portal, like I just did, and go under My Applications, there's something called General Information. So you go under My Application and General Information, and under the Documents tab, you have any manual that you could want. So we have our test administration manual for TABE 11 and 12. I'm assuming 13 and 14 will be there today by the end of the day. Since we are going live tomorrow, we have our test administration manual available for Class C, C and D, A and B. We have quick start guides available. So if you have someone that's new starting within your program and they need a quick start guide, they've gone through the training that TWC requires with TCAL, but sometimes we forget things. So there's quick start guides there. There's test directions, whether you're giving it paper and pencil or online. We posted our test directions. There's technical manuals available. So lots and lots of information built right into the DRC Insight portal. What I recommend to my programs is when you navigate out there, there's a way to kind of filter down. Just leave it as all documents for now until you get used to what's actually in there. And then you can start filtering down. It's only 2 pages to tab through. Most of you probably haven't seen this yet, unless you joined one of the national webinars, because I don't think I've presented this to Texas at this point. It's called the NTA, the Next Test Assignment Post-Testing Chart. If you've ever been in a situation where you're like, I'm not really sure what level to give after the pre-test, this document, it's a separate document at this point. It'll tell you exactly, based on the scale score range, what level that a student needs to be post-tested in. We do have this for Class E. This is obviously a TABE example, but we have it for both TABE and TABE Class E. But the nifty thing is, you guys will see this in the next couple of slides, is we are going to incorporate this into our student profile reports. It'll say exactly what test needs to be given on the post-test on the student profile report. That happens for TABE 13 and 14 tomorrow. So 11 and 12, you'll use this nifty little NTA chart. Once you navigate to 13 and 14, it will be on the actual profile report. The same with Class C. A and B, you're going to have to utilize the chart that's been created, but with C and D, it'll populate right on the individual profile report. Reporting, other than that, doesn't really change. You'll still have your locator report available. Now, the other thing about the locator report, remember with the auto locator, you used to have to go in and get the information from the portfolio. If you utilize the auto locator, now with the new 13 and 14, it will be its separate report, whether you're using the standalone locator or the auto locator. In the event that you need that information, it will be there under on-demand reports. But the report itself, really, it does not change. So the sole purpose of this locator report is just to determine what level of TABE to administer. So it's not going to give you any kind of information other than the level that needs to be administered, or the recommended level. Again, I say recommended level because I like to say too, the locator is sometimes one piece of the puzzle. So if you are doing intake and you have other information, again, just keep in mind the locator is one piece of that puzzle. The individual profile report. This is an example of a TABE 1314 individual profile report. As you can see, the report looks very similar to 11 and 12, but we've added all the way over to the right-hand side that recommended next level for post-testing. You'll still receive the same grade information below on performance on each domain. It's going to list out all of the domains, the points possible, the points obtained, the items attempted, and whether they were non-proficiency, partial proficiency, or proficiency, whether they are non-proficiency, partial proficiency, or proficiency in each of these domains. And then, of course, that second page of the individual profile report, that's your diagnostic report. So we're going to pinpoint the areas for next focus. And as I mentioned early on in the webinar, these areas for next focus, this is what is being imported into our curriculum partners' online platforms to really help determine or establish those individual learning plans for students.
Chastity, there's a question. Does TABE Class E have a locator report as well?
Yes, TABE Class C has a locator report. The functionality of TABE Class C works just like TABE. So you administer the locator, determine the appropriate level of Class C, of course, place them in that level, and then from there determine what level ESL classroom or content they will be presented with, and then you can post test. So the functionality of Class C is basically the same as TABE. That's the individual profile report. The only change is adding that next recommended level. So I call it the NTA. So if you hear me refer to that, next test assignment. So it's just looking for what you should assign for your examinees post-test. The other thing that's different is some of you use this diagnostic area of TABE, of the individual profile report, and some of you may not. I've gotten mixed feelings about it, which is fine. It's whatever works for your program. And one of the complaints that I've always gotten is, in theory, it's great. It is great, but the descriptions are basically in TABE language. I don't really know what those align to. And then I would always be like, oh my gosh, have you checked out the crosswalk? We have this crosswalk located on tabetest.com. It's a lot to look at the TABE description and then align it to the appropriate standard. So that's what the crosswalk does. It aligns the TABE descriptors to the appropriate standard and provides that number for that standard. Well, we're going to incorporate the standard number that aligns to the TABE description here. So you can see under demonstrated skills, they've got those numbers listed. That will be incorporated on the TABE 13 and 14 reports as well. So you'll be able to know exactly what standard the specific TABE descriptor is referencing, which I think is a good thing too. Those are the couple of changes, I think all good things, all things that have come from our customers and what they would like to see. Next is the individual portfolio report. Nothing really changes with the individual portfolio report. It's just the testing history of your students. And again, it's not going to give you that diagnostic information, but it is going to give you the scales score and the NRS level and all of the TABE tests that your student has taken. If you are not familiar with Class E, the Class E report is going to look exactly like the TABE report. So it's going to give you the same great information. I can't show you it now because it's not going to be added till April, but for Forms C and D, we are adding that NTA, so the next test assignment for post-testing, up at the top here to the right-hand side of the NRS level. So there will be an area where that is indicated as well. So it's not currently available, but it will be available hopefully in April, I'm told. Below that, just the NRS level description. And then below that, again, just like TABE, we're looking at the performance on domains. So it's breaking down each subtest, looking at the performance on those domains within those subtests, and whether your examinee has reached non-proficiency, partial proficiency, or fully proficient. And then page 2 is the same diagnostic page that you saw with TABE. I like to call it your prescriptive report. It's going to give you or pinpoint exactly what areas need to be focused on. We will be pulling from this information. This is what would be exported and imported into our curriculum partners database so that you can create that individualized learning plan for your ESL students. One thing I did want to point out, and I say this a lot, sometimes I feel like I'm repeating myself, but usually 1 or 2 people are unaware of this. So within the domains, again, on the prescriptive portion, so that's page 2 of your individual profile report, under reading, we have our quantitative literacy, which we know that's going to be going away with C&D. And the performance is proficient. So they're fully proficient, and it lists their demonstrated skills, and then it lists areas for next focus. So I do get asked a lot, why are there areas for next focus if they are fully proficient? And it's because if you go all the way over to the left-hand side and you look at the level and the form, we're still on level 1. And if you know anything about TABE Class C, we have 4 proficiency levels. We have level 1, which is our lowest proficiency level, and we go all the way up to level 4, which is our highest. So we're still working on level 1, right? The areas for next focus, it's pulling for level 2. Both TABE and TABE Class C will always pull to the next level if they are fully proficient in the current level. So it's moving them right along that proficiency pathway. One thing that we did develop was our high school. I talked about this already. We have multiple pathways. There are multiple pathways to high school equivalency, high school diploma, and folks program states. I mean, in Tennessee's case, it's actually statewide, and actually in Texas, I guess it would be statewide too, with the alternative high school diploma. They really are utilizing TABE for a specific reason because of the extensive background that we have, obviously, with high school equivalency and the research that we've done. Most of you should be familiar with this concordance table. So we have our TABE to high school equivalency concordance. We have this available for reading and math. And what it does is it shows you the minimum passing score, I guess, that a student would need to achieve in order to pass the GED or the HiSET. We have different levels. The first level, you can see the 536 for both GED and HiSET and reading. That would be a level M. So a level M, 536, that is the minimum passing score that a student can get. And a student would be likely to pass the GED or the HiSET. So it's equivalent to a student barely passing high school. Does that mean they're ready to move on to the next level in life, ready to be where they need to be in those foundational skills in reading and math in order to pursue specific careers? Probably not. But are they likely to pass the high school equivalency based on the research that we have done? Yes, they probably are. Then we have our college level. So that's stating the student receives a 627 on the GED and a 627 on the HiSET, that they're ready for college. They're ready to move into those college level classes, probably don't have to take any remedial classes in order to get into those classes. So there are different levels to consider. The other thing to consider is that 627, that's a level D. So that's not a level M. So when we're looking at the first cut scores, we're looking at a level M. And then we're saying that they are college ready at a level D of 627. And then of course, GED offers that college ready credit, and it isn't until they've reached a 721 and a level A that they're at that point. This table is available on tabetest.com under resources, and we have it for reading, which is what we've been focused on, but we also have the breakdown for math as well. I do get asked a lot from particular programs, at what level is my student ready? What level can I send them on to take the high school equivalency and be confident that they're going to pass? So I always present them with this concordance and just explain the different levels and what they mean. Our next steps, now that we have, for our online customers, all of our new forms will be available from DRC's perspective. I just want to reiterate that. Every state is going to be different with their implementation of these forms. So it is important that you check your state's assessment policy to know when you can begin using 1314 and C and D. There will be certification requirements. So I think maybe your state might just say you have to be recertified, but it won't be a full length training because, as you saw, there's not a lot that changes, right? You will see a recertification on tabetest.com, but that does not count for your recertification. You all know that you have to get that training through TCOL. Do not think that that's going to count. And then the other thing that I will mention, if you're a current TABE Online customer, because as I mentioned, with our TABE Online customers, TABE Class C is on the exact same platform. So it's really a matter of us switching something behind the scenes. If you're interested in just piloting Class C, C and D, let me know, email me directly, and I will see about getting you set up on that. Now, again, you can't report these scores or anything at this point in time because it's not been approved by the state of Texas, but it does give you an opportunity to pilot for free. And we are only doing it through the end of April, I believe is what I was told. There's a limited time frame there. As I've been saying throughout the entire webinar, please check out tabetest.com for new resources. We're adding them all the time. I was hoping that I would have all the 13 and 14 to show you today, but I don't, but they will be there. And the same with forms C and D. Pretty much everything is there for you. So if you're interested in the new Class C assessment, go in and take a peek under the resources at tabetest.com and make sure you're accessing the Class C CD resources. I told you nothing really changes on the DRC Insight platform, right? Well, it wasn't necessarily a fib, but the way that you access C&D in 1314 is a little bit different. So right now, when you go into My Applications, let's say we're adding a new test, right? Or test sessions. So we go under Manage Test Sessions, and our administration right now, for those of us that use even Class C, A and B, and TABE 11 and 12, is this, it's TABE. We've now added drop downs. So if you are administering 13 and 14, you have to actually select the 13, 14. If you are administering C and D, you have to actually select the C and D. This goes for any of the applications that you go into under administration. We never had to worry about it before because we always just left it TABE and it brought up Class C and TABE. But now we do. We have to select Class C if we want to create a test session for Class C, C, and D. We want to create a test session for TABE 1314. We need to select the appropriate dropdown. And that's the only thing that really changes. And you'll find that this is a good thing. The reason we did this is so that when we need to make adjustments to the TABE Class C, C, and D assessment, we don't have to bring down the whole entire system any longer. We can just make our slight adjustments here, and it has no bearing or effect on 13 and 14. If we have to do something with TABE 11 and 12 or TABE A and B, it has no effect on the Class C, C and D, or 11 and 12. The other thing that it's going to do, and I think a lot of you are going to really like this, is that there is a lot of content. There's a lot of data in that TABE dropdown for both your Class C and your TABE. By creating these separate tabs, it gives you a clean slate. You're creating new test sessions. You're not going to see all the old test sessions that you did from, let's say, 9 and 10, now 11 and 12, 13 and 14. Those all go away. You're only going to see your 13 and 14 test sessions now. You're only going to see your students that are taking the 13 and 14. All of those duplicate students that you had prior with the prior forms, those go away. It's a clean slate. Hopefully that's good news. I know that programs that I have spoken to about this over the last month or so are ecstatic. That means generating reports, processing time, all increases. That is why that decision was made. Super simple. Once you get to the point where you are actually implementing it, you will be given instructions. I'm sure that's probably one of the recertification things that's being added that they'll be telling you about.
Thank you so much, Chastity, for sharing with Texas and giving us your undivided attention today.
We hope you enjoyed this pre-recorded webinar. After you have passed the final test with a score of 80% or greater and have received your certificate of completion, please take a few moments to complete the course evaluation. Participant feedback helps Train PD at TCAL continue to provide high-quality professional development. To leave a course feedback, please go to the completed portion of your transcript. To do this, hover over the My Learning tab and select View Your Transcript. Click on the drop-down arrow next to the word Active and select Completed. Then, click Evaluate in the drop-down menu next to the course you just completed. Please note that your feedback is greatly appreciated.